While watching a plane glide down from the sky, we always ask the same question. How could such a mistake happen? But perhaps the real question is, can the human mind handle perfection? Plane crashes are moments when not metal, but the mind breaks. Amid technology, safety, and systems, a human makes a decision. And that decision sometimes changes a city, a family, a life forever. 1. The assurance of technology, the reality of humanity. Airplanes are humanity's engineering marvels. Behind every system, every screw, every line of code lie billions of dollars of tests and probability calculations. Mathematics is flawless. But within mathematics, one thing cannot be predicted: the human. Statistically, air travel is the safest form of transportation. But statistics do not touch emotions. For a passenger, even a 0.01% chance is a huge possibility, because in the air, safety depends not only on engineering, but also on the human mind. 2. The human factor, cognitive collapse in the air. France 447 accident, the nose of the plane lifted toward the sky in the middle of the ocean. Sensors froze, data conflicted, pilots hesitated. Suddenly, technology went silent, and the stage was left to the human brain. Inside the cockpit, seconds turned into minutes. Consciousness drowned in information. Screens blinked, each showing a different truth. And at that moment, the most primitive instinct took over: panic. Psychologists call this cognitive tunneling. Under stress, the mind locks onto a single detail. The pilot's eyes fix on one number, everything else disappears. At that instant, it is not information, but fear that takes control, and fear knows no protocol. 3. The psychology of silence. In the Korean Air 801 crash, the co-pilot's voice was almost a whisper. "Captain, we are too low." But that voice was not loud enough, because opposing authority seemed more dangerous than death itself. Authority bias, the bias toward authority. The human brain evolved to adapt to hierarchy, and sometimes that adaptation overrides the instinct to survive. The cockpit is filled with procedures. But procedure cannot always silence human nature. No one wants to be misunderstood. No one wants to say, "I might be wrong." And so, one sentence remains unsaid. A plane approaches the ground, and the world once again asks, why did no one speak up? 4. Normalization of deviation. No crash happens suddenly. A crash happens gradually. NASA engineers use a term, normalization of deviance, when deviation becomes normal. A small mistake goes unnoticed. The next day, the same mistake happens again, and again. Eventually, that mistake becomes a new norm. A screw missed during a routine aircraft check does not kill anyone the next day. But years later, that same looseness turns into tragedy in the sky. Just like in human relationships, small neglect paves the way for great destruction. 5. Systemic blindness and collective error. Crashes are not individual, they are collective. A technician is tired, a manager cuts costs, an inspector looks the other way, and the system normalizes its own blindness. Everyone has done their job, but no one has questioned its meaning. That is why the most dangerous sentence in any organization is, "This is how we've always done it." Human systems are designed not for perfection, but for habit, and habit can be a deadly comfort. 6. Philosophical turning point: the weight of perfection. Plane crashes are not only mechanical but also existential mirrors, because we humans are obsessed with perfection. But perfection contradicts our nature. A philosopher once said, "Man makes mistakes because he can think." Our mistakes are born of consciousness. That is what separates us from machines. Every plane crash is, in fact, a war humanity wages against its own nature. We try to defeat our flaws with technology, but perhaps every new technology only creates a new form of error. In searching for perfection, we lose our humanity. 7. The sky is a mirror. Looking at the sky is looking into the past. Every airplane carries not only passengers but the accumulated knowledge of millions of people, and every fallen plane is the moment a civilization faces its own flaws. Remember the recent crash in America. Every camera, every commentator said, "Pilot error." But perhaps it wasn't about error. It was about the boundary of the human mind. Whatever the system, at some point the human factor enters. Because in the end, we always return to the same truth. In the air, as in life, no system is completely free of human flaws. 8. Learning to fly again. But the story doesn't end here. Every crash gives birth to a new safety standard. Every mistake rewrites a system. Just like in life, every fall is a form of learning. Pilots extract lessons from black boxes. We extract them from our own failures. Both end with the same question: can I do better next time? 9. To fly, to fall, to learn. Plane crashes are the collective diary of humanity. In every line, there is fear, error, hope, and rebirth. Because flying is not only a physical act, it is a mental belief. Maybe that's why, after every crash, we look at the sky a little differently, because that sky holds both humanity's greatest dream and its greatest weakness. Every crash is not just the death of an error, but the birth of awareness. Learning to fly is learning to make peace with our flaws. Think deeper. Fly higher. MindSnap.